Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. Our broadcast today features a conversation from our most recent Metis Strategy Digital Symposium on the topic of rethinking talent strategy for the next normal. The conversation featured Casey Santos, the Chief Information Officer of Asurion, and Sri Donthi, the Chief Technology Officer of Advance Auto Parts. And the gentleman who led the conversation was Metis Strategy's co-head, Executive Networks, Research, and Media, Stephen Norton. Stephen, welcome.
Thanks, Peter. It's great to be here.
Well, Stephen, it's hard to think of a more poignant topic these days than talent strategies, especially just given the complication that so many organizations are having of both keeping great people, but also importantly, adding great people to their fold. So it doesn't take much convincing as to the relevance of this, but talk from your own perspective as to why this was a particularly interesting topic for us to cover.
Sure. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Peter. The talent landscape has just shifted remarkably over the last couple of years. The demand for highly skilled talent remains extremely high, but the way that organizations find, develop, and retain that talent has completely changed. And on top of that, too, is this new focus on how do you maintain a sense of culture in a sort of hybrid world where there's a mix of in-person and remote working. And so that was really the genesis of this panel. We wanted to dig into the ways in which recruiting and retention strategies are changing, talking about the rise of upskilling and reskilling inside organizations, and really start the conversation around how technology leaders are creating a learning mindset within their companies and how that applies not only to IT, but also to the organizations more broadly.
That's a great overview, Stephen. Thanks. And I mentioned your conversation was with Casey Santos from Asurion, Sri Donthi from Advance Auto Parts. In brief, give us a perspective as to why they were great personifications of what you've just described.
Sure. Yeah. So as you mentioned, Casey, she's the CIO at Asurion. They're based in Nashville. They're an $8.5 billion company that provides insurance and support for smartphones and other products. And she's got a really interesting perspective because she joined this role in March of 2021. So she has a lived experience on what it's like to join a job remotely and deal with some of the real challenges of hybrid working. And her perspective is really interesting, as I think you'll see in this panel, on how she thinks about flexibility and also how she thinks about telling the story of Asurion and telling the company's story. And then Sri, as you noted, the Chief Technology Officer for Advance Auto Parts, a $10 billion specialty retailer. Sri's based in Raleigh. And he has done quite a lot inside Advance Auto to build an engineering culture. And so thinking about how do you create spaces that encourage innovation? How do you put customers at the center? And how do you really inspire that learning mindset inside your people? One of the things that he noted in the panel was really that a learning mindset and a continuous learning mindset isn't optional anymore. And so it was great to get his perspective on how he develops that within his teams.
Well, thank you, Stephen. Again, a great description. Well, without further ado, let's get to the conversation, Rethinking Talent Strategy for the Next Normal, featuring Casey Santos of Asurion, Sri Donthi from Advanced Auto Parts, in conversation with Metis Strategy's Stephen Norton.
Our topic today for this panel is building on the talent question you see here, thinking about the way that talent strategies are changing as we head into 2022. And as brief introduction to the topic, as many have noted today, that the talent landscape and the way that work gets done has shifted significantly and in remarkable ways just over the last 2 years. And so whether you're an organization that's been affected by the Great Resignation, or you're leaning even further into your digital transformation efforts as a result of acceleration, the through line through that is the need to really focus on cultivating strong people and a strong culture. And so we'll talk about that today with Casey and Sri across many different aspects of this. Well, I thought we might start with you, Casey, at the sort of beginning of this process with recruiting. As you've come into Asurion and you're thinking about how to navigate all of the changes that have been happening in the talent landscape, how are you tuning your approach to recruiting new talent and finding the best people to come and join you?
Yeah, so I think a few things. One is you talked about it earlier, this Great Resignation. I think with a lot of us at home over the last 20 months, we've had a lot of time to think, and we are looking to work in places that align with where we want to be. And so I think we're really looking at telling our story a little more in a personal way. We understand that we have a great story to tell, great culture, great, we're a growth company, we're doing great technology. And I think in the past we would just we relied more on the more formal recruiting techniques, and I think we're looking at more informal recruiting, networking, telling our story, and that's hard to do in a pandemic. So how do we shift how we network and connect with others to make sure that people know about the great opportunities we have? So I think that's been a big one. We've also rethought about location. I think we still believe we are better together, and there are times and places where we really need to be together to collaborate and innovate. That said, that's not every moment. And so being flexible and meeting people where they are and thinking about how they work and their personal circumstances and providing that has been a change in our the way we think. I mean, we've been flexible, but it's going to another level now.
Right. I appreciate that. And it's something we've heard from a lot of different technology leaders, is that need for flexibility. And, it seems like now it's figuring out exactly what flexibility means for each of those organizations based on where they are. Thank you. Sri, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about another key piece of this that Casey mentioned as well, which is culture. So of course, we're all looking to bring talent in, but we also have a lot of existing talent. And as we bring new people into the door, creating that culture and making that very clear, as Casey mentioned, telling that story and making it real becomes paramount. And I know that you've done a lot of work inside Advanced Auto to really focus on building up an engineering culture. Could you talk to us a little bit about some of the things that you've gone through to make that happen and how you define that engineering culture at Advance?
Yeah, sure. I'll be happy to, Steve. So, at Advance is a company that, has a really bold and a relentless drive in everything that we do. This includes ensuring that we operate as a technology company that happens to sell auto parts. To accomplish this goal, we ensure that all of our business and cultural transformation efforts integrate technology solutions to better enable how we work so we can really serve our customers. During this pandemic, we demonstrated this by delivering our advanced same-day suite of services, such as the advanced same-day delivery and advanced curbside pickup. All these things by building this engineering culture, Steve, that you mentioned. And there are a few guiding principles that we kind of look at as building this, the engineering culture. One, how do we make a environment as a comfortable to innovate? As we are bringing in the best-in-class talent, and we want all of our team members to excel, and they can see the big picture and are interested in challenging themselves, right? So, start with that customer in mind and bringing in from a customer back, the standpoint, but at the same time, look at the big picture is one of them that really kind of puts the innovation at the top of mind. And the second area is the enable this intellectual curiosity. We need to have our technology teams go beyond just the core technical skills, right? How do we make our team members that they learn new things in a world that's moving at a rapid pace? In IT, we believe that it's a lifelong learning. It isn't an optional anymore, right? So, and we, provide those kind of trainings to our team members as part of that. The next one is the passion for the domain. And, how do we ensure that we find our team members understand and relate to our mission of using technology to engage and energize our various teams. For this reason, our team members strive to build the skills and demonstrate expertise with the projects and to provide a better solution. And the next one is the last one is the speed and agility as well, right? So, change is the new norm. We all have learned a whole lot during this pandemic, and becoming complacent is not an option nor it is relevant anymore in any industry, but particularly in technology. And understanding this global landscape and how we change is occurring at a pace never seen before and more important than ever. And as part of this, the reason I'm here in India is, as we launched our technology strategy, we needed a best-in-class talent. And this is back in 2018 and 2019. And we felt like, we need to go where the talent is versus bringing the talent where we are. And we established a global capability center in India. And we opened that up just before the pandemic. But through the pandemic, we ramped up our recruiting efforts, and we've been able to get a 400 plus our team members here in India. And I've not had a chance to meet with them since they came on board. And interestingly, many of them have not had a chance to meet with each other as well. So, in last week and this week, so I've been meeting with them and understanding how they've been coming on board and how they're learning and helping us to advance in our company.
Fantastic, Sri. I'm so glad that you're able to get some face time with them and continue to see how they've grown and hopefully have some good time for fellowship and learning. I want to come back to one thing you said about lifelong learning. I think what it implies is, not only do we need to be curious, but as leaders, we have to figure out how to develop that curiosity and how to develop our people over time to make sure that culture of lifelong learning is something that's ever present in our organizations. And so, Casey, I'd love to turn it back over to you as more people and your team at Asurion thinks about how to reskill, how to upskill, and really places more emphasis on career development. What are some of the initiatives that you're pursuing to send your teams down that path?
Yeah, I think it's right. I like to see that was the number one, was you're investing in your own people. So one of the things that we are working to continue to grow is our ability to coach and help people through their journey of that lifelong learning, right? A few programs that we're thinking about. One is training our leaders to be better coaches and sponsors, and really understanding the idea of sponsorship and understanding people's goals and helping them roadmap and being partners in that, instead of it's just your career, you go figure it out, right? How do we help you get to where you want to be? We have put in some really interesting programs around software internships, where we're taking some of our call center experts and helping them and our frontline supply chain folks and helping them build software engineering skills, take classes, have in-house opportunities and projects to work on to kind of move into that next part of their career. We are exploring rotation programs. We already have a really strong internal mobility program where people have had multiple roles across the organization and can grow those skills. And those actually that's a gift that keeps giving, because that ability to connect the dots and understand relationships, which is a big challenge, especially right now. We have what we call a cultural bank, right? We had built a really strong culture, and then we went into lockdown. And so we're now just chipping away at that. So how do we bring that back together and create those aha moments? But so those are things that we look at: the apprenticeship that we're doing, the rotational programs, and the internal mobility programs are things that we are leaning into, and then also training our leaders to be better coaches rather than just task managers.
Yeah, I love that you touched on that. Not only developing new talent that comes in or entry-level talent, but also really making sure that your middle managers and your VPs and everyone is really ready to make that shift together. Thank you, Casey. Sri, I wonder, do you have any similar initiatives that are going on inside Advance to drive some of that reskilling and upskilling efforts?
Yeah, no, definitely, Steve. Especially given the pandemic time, I would say one, focusing on their technical and functional expertise, but we also put together a few things, as we call it, as a leading with a care. The covering the topics like, caring for yourself and a crisis leadership, virtual leadership, or inspirational leadership, to help all of our leaders to implement a new skill set, needed to adapt to this current environment, while building all of our future needs on this, right? So, that's the just being that empathetic and engaging throughout this pandemic time is actually we received a pretty good feedback from all of our team members. In addition to that, as Casey mentioned, so a number of other technical expertise. We also brought in a lot of a lunch and learn type of sessions to upgrade our skill sets. And we also put in more of a rotational, the programs inside of our company to move folks from one function to the other, and some of the folks from data engineer into the software engineering side, and moving into the other disciplines that we've been able to navigate that to continue to engage them and enhance their skill sets.
Fantastic. Great to hear about those programs. Thank you, Sri. We have a couple of minutes left. Casey, I wonder if we could talk a little bit about automation. I know this is something that you worked on a lot in previous roles, and it's something that you're thinking about now at Asurion. One of the things that we hear, of course, is RPA and automation is really making inroads in a lot of organizations, particularly over the last year and a half. But I think the story will be familiar to a lot of people in the audience that it's not always an easy sell, or there may be some confusion around how it gets applied and what it means for people. And I wonder if you could reflect a bit for us on how you tell that story and how you approach that as you think about ramping up automation within the organization.
Yeah, so I think for us, automation has a couple of goals. One is to make sure we continue to scale and grow, because we are a growth company. We're growing at a double-digit clip every year. And so at some point, it becomes hard to throw people at the problem, right? Especially around operational capabilities. And so when we look at automation initiatives, one is to help us with that, scale that, but the other is to give people a more meaningful set of work to do, right? And I think this ties back to the conversation we just had about coaching people and being there and helping them navigate their career. And I think the messaging has to be really clear that we're here in this with you to bring you along into that next phase. So if you are doing those types of things that are being automated, it's not just a, hey, you'll figure it out. We want to help you think through that, train you for those things that are more meaningful for you and will actually help us as we work through growth, right, and transformation. So if you think about how much we spend on run the business, it's an incredible amount. How can we take some of those resources and shift them into grow and transform? And that's really critical right now, because you can't hire yourself out of the problem. I mean, it's really complex and it's hard to find people. So we've got to figure out a way to shift our focus. And I think that's the messaging has to be really clear, that this is also, it's a win-win. It's not a headcount reduction conversation. It's a, how do we get you to working on things that are going to be more meaningful for you? You're going to be able to see the impact of what you're doing and how it affects customers directly versus maybe some of the more checkboxing type of experiences. So that's really our messaging. Also making sure those people are part of the solution and helping us imagine what can be automated, right? And seeing their next step of what can happen after that.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Okay, so we have 2 minutes left. We'll move to a quick lightning round for both of you. And Sri, we'll start with you if you don't mind. But as we've navigated the last almost 2 years and begun and been forced to work in new ways, and as some of us actually start coming back to the office and getting a taste of that for the first time, have there been any lessons or tips that you would share with the audience on how best to effectively innovate and collaborate in those sort of hybrid situations?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Steve. I mean, again, we're just as we speak, in the process of making the transition to return to work. While we never go back to the way we were, we all know that, and we're using some of this, environment as an opportunity to really advance our work, really the simplifying and changing, how we work in the future, right? So we definitely had a lot of learnings from this pandemic. Is that we needed to be nimble, we needed to listen to all of our team members' feedback. And we're using that as an approach to really define our future, to continuously test and learn what's working well and what's not, and how do we adapt to the future. And we know that we don't have all the answers, and we've been very transparent with all of our team members at this point. And as we learn new things and we continue to tweak, right? So that's the first. And the second one is that we feel that everyone feels differently about this best to work and how they can be most productive. I think we saw the poll earlier today in terms of how we feel whether we are more productive or less productive on this, but everyone feels differently on this. So the key thing that we're looking at is that how do we really extend the trust and then empowerment to all of our team members to work with each of the business leaders in developing the way that they work the best for them versus trying to be prescriptive on this.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it, Sri. And Casey, over to you. Any tips for the group?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a mindset shift that we're working on. We just opened a brand new, beautiful office here, so the timing is really good for bringing people back together to innovate, and really kind of separating the way we think about work into a few different buckets. There's kind of the work that you need to focus on at home that you can be really, really effective and maybe more focused. There's the work that you can do with your team, that's your insular team, your team that you've been working with, your internal team. And then there's those water cooler moments, the connectivity, the networking that happens, and that innovation. That's what we're really focusing on. When we come together, let's make it purposeful. Let's be intentional. Like, don't come to the office to stare at your Zoom screen, right? Get in a room, talk to people, go to lunch, interact. And we're fortunate we have a great facility to do that in, but I think people's mindsets have to change. And so how do we encourage that, right? And how do we model that behavior as leaders, right? I need to stay home on the Friday just to let people know it's okay. You can stay home on Fridays. It's good, So I think that's some of the stuff we're working on.
Fantastic. Yes, leading by example. Well, Casey, Sri, thank you so much for your insights today. I know we didn't have nearly enough time, but really appreciate you being here today. And we'll look forward to our future conversations. Thank you so much.